Hey folks, Billboard Chart Guy here, and welcome to another episode of BBCG and Friends. I'm thrilled to be joined by the one and only Mick Mark. Mick, how are you?
Pleasure to be on. I am great. Great show we got here. Excited, and we were talking beforehand. I love talking music, so I am thrilled to be on here.
Awesome. Thanks for doing this. Really appreciate it, and I'm looking forward to chatting with you. We are recording this on Monday, the 22nd, and we got dropped a bomb about 6 or 7 hours ago regarding the news of Kirk. Due to ongoing health concerns, he'll be stepping away for the foreseeable future, and as a result, the Laconia Live show has been postponed. Obviously, that show being postponed is the least of our concerns right now. So, for myself, thinking of him and just hoping all is okay. I know, Mick, you've had a close relationship with him as his caddy. And I'm not trying to be a wise guy, but you've spent more time with him than a lot of folks. So,
sure.
Any just thoughts on the situation?
Yeah, I mean, just hope all is best for him. I don't have any insight to add on what's going on. I thought what you just said was really well said. I think, the main thing is you just hope that he's okay physically, mentally, health-wise. Anything more than that, I think, is gravy. I don't care if he comes back to the show, does content or anything like that, just as somebody who, is a fan of him, but also cares about him. So I just hope that he's doing the best that he can. And, if he does come back to this world, whether it's KMS, the case, or anything like that, there's going to be tons of people supporting him. So I just hope that he knows that. But I hope all is well.
Yeah, well said as well. So let's jump into you and your musical history.
Sure.
My first question is, were you born and raised? Have you been on the Cape forever?
Yeah. I was born here, went to school here, high school, bounced around a little afterwards, but my family's from here. So yeah.
Okay, good. So growing up on the Cape, tell us about young Mick and what he was listening to. Was he influenced by Cousin Christian or Brother Al or the variety of folks we know about?
So my first memory with music, the first thing I really remember is listening to. Do you remember the Now CDs, like the Now 2000?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So my aunt had those, and she would drive us to Cousin Christian's mother. She would drive us to school, and it would be whatever, the pop hits of like 99, 2000, stuff like that. So that's my first like memory. But my first the first album I ever bought or was bought for me was from my grandfather, who didn't know anything about the music that he was buying us. It was me, my brother, a couple of my cousins. He got me the Eminem Show and the explicit version. So when I played that for my mom, they were like, "What in the? Who bought you this CD?" I think it was 2002, so I was probably 8 years old, and it was peak Eminem, just drugged out of his mind, rapping crazy lyrics, and that to me was my first like memory of any type of like, oh, music is a little different than what I thought it was. That was that Eminem Show album.
Right. So, do you remember, what was the big, was Slim Shady on that? What was the big song from that album or songs? Do you remember?
You put me on the spot, but it was, I'll look at, I don't know off the top of my head, but it was like, it was after the Marshall Mathers LP2. That was his, or LP1. That was his first, like, big CD. So whatever the follow-up one was, that it was when he was like, if I remember correctly, it was when he was like rapping about like Kim, his wife, being like a drug addict and all that. I just remember the lyrics and being like, oh, wow, this is not what I expected, but it was interesting,
Oh, cleaning out my closet.
There you go. Yeah, there you go.
Here you go. I found it. And Without Me, I think
Without
was a
Me.
big.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I was, adjacent listening to, basically still watching MTV.
Sure.
But, not really consuming a lot of this. Now, you're mentioning Eminem leads me to my most recent episode with Blind Mike, where he bleached his hair blonde when he was in fourth grade. Now, did you take that route as well?
No, I was not a full stan like Blind Mike. That's funny. I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
I never bleached my hair, but I certainly at one point was a, like I think I liked Eminem a little too much for my parents' liking. Like I wanted to read his biography and stuff like that. I remember I picked his book in like sixth grade to read. And my parents were like, maybe you should pick, Wayne Gretzky or someone else, like anybody else, please.
Right.
Yeah, no, I didn't bleach my hair though. It was nothing like that.
Okay. Were you interested in anything your parents were listening to? And what were they listening to?
Yeah, my mom is she's also kind of the same as my aunt. Very much pop, whatever was going at the time. From what I remember, big Christina Aguilera fan, big like that sort of era. But my dad, on the other hand, most of the time while I was in the car, we were listening to talk radio, whether it be sports, Stern, stuff like that. But he is a big music fan. He loves like Van Halen, AC/DC, anything like that. Linkin Park was another band I remember him listening to when I was like, probably 10 years old. They were probably at the peak.
Did any of that rub off on you, those bands?
Not originally. Certainly not when I was younger. I wasn't a big fan of the oldies, even in like high school. Like I knew some of them, and I knew Stairway to Heaven or something like that, but I didn't know I never dove into it. And probably around the age of 25 is when I started dipping into. I started with like AC/DC or that Pink Floyd, so whatever, like 80s, 70s, stuff like that, the big bands. And then you kind of dive into like a little more than that, but I would never consider myself a giant classic rock fan, but I certainly won't turn it off if it's a good song.
So you said your grandfather bought you the Eminem show.
Yeah.
Do you remember, Mick, going to a record store with an intention that you needed to have a CD?
Oh yeah.
What was it? What was the first one?
Well, it probably was that Eminem CD, but another one was was Snoop Dogg. I didn't even really like Snoop Dogg, but it was just cool to say that I think I was probably 11 years old, so I wanted the Snoop Dogg CD, but I wasn't even a huge fan of him. But like everybody liked Snoop Dogg at the time, so that was a big one. And I even remember taking it back. I actually had a Walkman. Like I had the tapes. We had.
Okay.
Yeah, so that was my first like introduction to music. I don't remember. It was probably like Backstreet Boys or something really, elementary. But the first real music was that Eminem Show album. And I'm trying to think of do you remember the artist Akon by any chance?
I've heard his name.
Yeah, it's just a very popular random, like, it was big in like 2006, 2007, but he had a big album that had a bunch of features on it with like Eminem and a few other big artists, and I really wanted that. I remember that was a big one.
It's funny that so when you had that Walkman, Mick, what years was that? When was that?
So I'm in 95. I was probably 5 years old. I mean 2000, 99, 2000. 5 years old probably.
Oh my gosh! So
my brothers, it was it was a hand me down.
It was a hand me down, right?
Sure.
So I remember when they first came out, and the first thing I listened to with headphones on with a Walkman was "Who Are You" by The Who.
Okay.
I don't know if you're familiar with that song.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, it's really sonic, and the music goes back and forth between each ear, and I just remember being on a school bus, and I'm like, wow, this is great. Yeah. So it's funny that because that probably would have been like 79.
Yeah.
So 20 years later, you were still rocking the Walkman. Yeah.
And even just like riding the bus, I remember countless times over the years, I would get an MP3 player for my birthday, for Christmas, but even before iPods, just whatever the Samsung MP3 player was, and it was so big to have, and you could, load on whatever music. And at the time we were illegally downloading. You remember that, the Napster days. And all
Napster.
That. Yeah. That was like my first real like introduction to the internet. I was like, oh, you can get free stuff off the internet. This is unbelievable.
I remember. Those were. And who sued that? It was Metallica, right? I think Metallica
so. Yeah,
sued. Yeah.
Kind of put them on a business, right? Done it for that, right?
Yeah. So let's jump to some concerts, and what was your first concert growing up? Who was it?
Yeah, like as a kid, I'm sure I went to like local stuff, but the first real production I saw was Blink-182, I was a sophomore in high school. It was at the Mansfield Comcast Center, whatever it was called, whatever it's called now.
Yeah.
And I was blown away. And I liked Blink-182 at the time. I was into that punk music, especially as like a middle school going into high school. I was really big into that era. They were probably on the tail end of like their fame as far as like their popularity and how good their music was, but they still were playing the hits at the shows, and it still was just fun to go see them. So that to me, yeah. And I had really close seats. I went with actually a girlfriend and her mother, which was interesting at the time, but we were younger, so
Yeah,
it
yeah.
kind of made sense, and it was fun. It was just a cool experience, and I remember thinking like I want to do that again. Like I want to go to a concert. I don't even care if I like the artist, like just being that close to somebody who's so good at music with thousands of people behind them cheer, like that to me was really cool, and kind of drove me to go see more art. Like I've seen people who I don't even really like. Yeah, I've seen Jack Johnson, never really has been a huge fan of him. I saw the Foo Fighters when they were at Fenway. Just I've been to country concerts, never been a big country guy, but that's more of just like an atmosphere thing, I guess.
Do
Yeah,
do a lot of big artists come and forgive me, I've never been to the Cape. I don't know truly what goes on there. Do a lot of big artists, I know Buffett, right, would go
yeah,
Jimmy Buffett would come to the Cape.
yeah, that's probably as big as it's gonna get. I'm sure there's been some that have done like it's people like that, people in the tail end of their career that are still doing like 2,000 seat venues. We have the Melody Tent that's I think it's like 1,800 or 2,200 seats. And
Mhm.
it's a cool stage. Like comedians will come and do it. Like I remember in his early days, Kevin Hart did a set there. There's been some acts, but most of the time it's going to be Boston, or even Mansfield.
Yeah.
Mansfield's a big. The Cape used to have though what was called the Cape Cod Coliseum. Are you familiar with that?
No, no, I'm
So
not.
this was in like I want to say the 80s, probably early 80s. Vince McMahon owned it. He started the WWE. His father owned it actually, and during that time, Vince got given I think the Northeast division of the company, which included the Cape Cod Coliseum. So at the time they were doing the WWE, but it was a hockey rink, and it was like a concert venue, 5,000 seats, maybe more than that, maybe 7,500. I could be exaggerating, but a pretty good sized venue. And back in the day, Aerosmith actually performed there, and it was
Oh,
huge
wow.
because they're from Mass. And I
Yeah.
remember my uncle was telling me he went, they all jumped the fence. It was like a big deal. So back in the day, they would get bigger bands. I think that was probably the biggest they got, but nowadays, not so much.
Yeah. What's your most recent show you've been to?
Let me think. What
I know
is
working in restaurants, you probably don't get a lot of
yeah,
nights.
I'm trying post COVID. I don't think I've been to a big show, but before that, it was that Foo Fighters concert at Fenway. My favorite show that I've ever been to, which I don't think I mentioned, was Eminem and Rihanna at MetLife Stadium. That was I was in New York City for the time. I don't know, maybe eighth grade or maybe even a little old. I don't know how old I was. It was high school era, and Eminem was doing a 4-stop tour with Rihanna. They were doing that song "The Monster." I don't know if you remember it.
Yep, yep, I know
Yeah,
that one. Yep.
during that time, they just did a 4-city tour, and it was Detroit, New York, and a couple others. And we went out and saw them. And it actually to this day is the best concert I've ever seen. Not even the biggest Eminem fan. I know I've mentioned him and was listening to him early on, but just to see someone that good in a sold out stadium. That was the first stadium I've ever been to where the artist is, kind of taking it over. It was great.
It was most memorable because of the size, or just the performances, or
Yeah, I think,
expand a little bit on
yeah,
that.
I think it was just like I had seen beforehand. I had seen Blink-182 at like a 10,000, 12,000 seat, amphitheater or whatever.
Yep.
But this was MetLife Stadium. This was 65,000, 70,000 people. And we were on the floor, we were on the field. So it was, really good seats. And I had never been to a show, even Blink-182 when I was a huge fan. I'd never been to a show where I knew every song. And even Rihanna, like I'm not the biggest Rihanna fan, but she probably has, I don't know, 20 songs that are like, if they play, I know the lyrics, or I could sing the chorus or something. So
Yeah, yeah.
I'd
She's
never
got a
been.
lot.
It was like it felt like a Super Bowl halftime show. It was like two massive artists at the time at their peak, kind of coming together. So that was definitely probably my favorite concert, and just the best concert I've been to.
Yeah, I mean, the majority of the shows I've seen at MetLife are Springsteen, and I mean
And
that's a home field advantage for
yeah,
him.
yeah.
For, you know, but before MetLife, obviously it was Giant Stadium, and I
Mm.
saw tons of people, The Dead, Elton John, Billy Joel, the Stones, but
Do
yeah,
you have a favorite? Do you have
MetLife.
like do you have a favorite show or just a show that you've seen at MetLife?
A great question. There was a Bruce show in 2003 at MetLife Stadium that I didn't have the greatest seats, and a buddy and I went, and what made it memorable was he was singing a song called Mary's Place. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but the chorus is "Let it rain, let it rain, let it rain." And in the middle of him singing "Let It
Oh yeah.
Rain," the
Okay.
skies opened up,
Yep.
and it just amped up the whole crowd to
Sure.
another level. And it also amped him up.
Yeah.
And then he just his perform, and he just played in the rain. He
Right.
just
He's the
got
perfect
poured on
performer
it.
for that, right? Like he's the guy
Yeah,
during that.
yeah. So that probably is my favorite performance at that building for sure.
Yeah.
Very cool. Um, so let me switch gears for a few minutes before I let you go.
Yeah.
I I saw your recent announcement that you were kind of stepping back from the Beyond Average podcast.
Yep.
And then, about 10 days ago, I was happy to see an episode pop up.
That's right. Yeah, we're all
Um,
over the place.
yeah. So the question is, where do you currently stand with the show?
The show is kind of in a day by day status. I'm not going to say that I'm going to continue to do it regularly, but I don't think we have done our last episode. I do have other aspirations. I am working on a couple of different things, mainly the Michael Jackson
Yeah, I
miniseries.
want to get to that. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I'm very excited about that. But I guess with Beyond that, if there's something that comes up that is related to what we used to talk about or what people expect me to talk about on Beyond Average that needs to be talked about, then I will have a hard time saying no. It's easy for me because I can do it from home. I just click record and boom. But it's when you get caught up with the other stuff and all of the craziness. It's like, is it all worth it? That's when I kind of have to ask myself, like, do I want to keep doing all of this if it's just going to affect me negatively and not really
Right.
have a huge positive outcome in my life? So I've kind of balanced that and kind of figuring that out.
Okay. Yeah, and yeah, I haven't gotten the knives and arrows that have been directed towards you, so I
You
certainly
haven't done anything that deserves it, to be fair.
Yeah.
You're a nice
Yeah.
man like me.
I try to keep my nose clean.
That's
So,
right.
So you mentioned the Michael Jackson project. So,
Yeah.
first question is, what led you to kind of be interested in that? And secondly, like, are you a fan of his music?
Yeah. So what led me, I guess, originally to dive deep into it, when he died, I was a freshman going into my freshman year of high school. And I remember the story, but in pop culture, at least at that time, Michael Jackson was viewed as almost like a laughing stock. Like
Absolutely. Yeah.
he was made a mockery of. And I grew up. Might sound politically incorrect, but I grew up thinking like Michael Jackson was not thinking he was white, but like that's the person he looked like. He was just a guy with bleached skin. Like I didn't see anything before that, so I never knew anything. I just knew he was popular, and then I don't know exactly the moment, but I came across one of his performances, and it was just like the amount of people and the stardom, and it was maybe a tweet that said it was years ago. It was nobody will ever come close to Michael Jackson's fame or something like that, and I started doing just basic research, just being like, oh, was he bigger than the Beatles? And everybody who I read was like, this guy was, you can't even comprehend the level of fame he was. Like it was staggering. He was a global icon in every sense of the word. So I guess for me, with his death not making a lot of sense, that's what really piqued my interest. But also, I didn't know much about the guy, and all I knew was, the stuff that the media said and how terrible he was. And I'm not even getting into the pedophilia aspect. I just mean the stuff that he was made fun of in pop culture at the time.
Right.
Like I never knew how great he was. So it was a combination of the scandalous death and just not knowing about a guy who a lot of people argue is the most famous person to ever walk the earth.
Yeah, I mean, he was everywhere. And remember, and I know you know this since you're doing this, but I mean, he was in the general conscious space since he was like, 7 or 8 years old.
Right.
With his brothers, and those performances are legendary, being on like the Ed Sullivan Show and things like Soul Train and American Bandstand and all of that, and then to come out as a solo artist and have the two incredible albums back to back, Off the Wall and then Thriller, which I think it's 34 times 34 million.
It's incredible.
It's incredible. And you're right. I mean, the level of fame he had in 1984, without any social media, I mean, it is incredible. I don't know.
Let me ask you that you'd know better than me, because I wasn't around at the time, obviously, but was it cool to like Michael Jackson? Because a lot of time the popular artist, the number one person, whoever it is, it's Taylor Swift or whoever, like they're gonna have their huge fans, but they're also gonna have the people that are gonna say, oh, it's lame to like him. Was Michael Jackson ever like that, or did people just like? I feel like a lot of people I've talked to, whether it be aunts, uncles, everybody liked Michael Jackson. Like it wasn't it wasn't uncool to like Michael Jackson.
Yeah, there was at that point, 1982, when Thriller came out, there was nothing controversial.
Right.
There was nothing too weird yet that had come out. He was, again, he made great songs. He produced great songs and great albums, and was an incredible live performer. Right. But what happened was, with all of that fame came the scrutiny. Yeah. And he lives at Neverland that had ostriches walking around.
Yeah.
You started to hear like little bits of that's a little odd, but it kept escalating, and it's a shame, because just as a talented musical performance, there are, on one hand, you could probably count the people who are right there with him. Absolutely. So it's just it's tragic what happened. And again, putting aside what there's the controversy with the pedophilia and all of that, and I really don't get too much involved in any of that. I just listen. I've always said, and I think little Steven Van Zandt in the E Street Band said this once: love the art, not necessarily the artist. So you need to kind of put them in two different buckets, right? If you love Michael Jackson and his music, now all of a sudden, are you not going to listen to Beat It or Billie Jean because these are, so it's a fine line to walk.
It is. And like, I think it's how you, it's with me, like R. Kelly's one where when Ignition comes on, a lot of people go, oh, don't play that. I'm like, that's a great song. It's a great song. Right. It almost feels like you're letting the evil win when you're like, oh, we're going to take away from the music. Now, if it's a song about something terrible, it might be different, but if it's just like a song by some, like a lot of the times, especially when you peel back the curtain on all these people, they're flawed human beings. To get to where they are, to get the success that they've had, the drive that they have to do to put aside their entire life to commit themselves to this, like they got some skeletons, most of these people. And I'm not saying it's okay to do anything that R. Kelly did, but just as a general point, I think most of these people who are famous, they deal with some demons, and I think that's very safe to say. Yeah.
So I'm excited for this project to come out. Are you targeting at some point this year, 2026?
Yeah, I appreciate the support there. I'm excited as well. I think we're looking at March 2026. There is a movie coming out regarding Michael Jackson.
Yes, there is.
A pretty big production. They got high hopes for it, and that comes out, I think, the first week of April. So in a perfect world, we'll get this out 2 weeks before that, or ideally something, 2 weeks, a week before, something like that, or some lead up to the movie, or maybe a week after it's released, within that general time frame. That's kind of what I'm shooting for. I'm still iron out exactly what the series is going to be like. I have a lot of sound that I've recorded. I've talked to people. I have clips. I have all of that. I have episodes lined out, but I also, I still feel like there's a little more that I can do with it. So I'm trying to figure out if, I don't want to do an entire documentary on Michael Jackson's life, because that will be here forever. Like, there's so much there, but I don't want to skip over anything too important.
Yeah, no, well, looking forward to it, and best of luck with it. I can't wait to hear that. The last thing I had for you today is a little bit of a, we'll step away from Michael, but
Yeah.
your caddy outfit is outstanding.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
So where the hell did you get that? And
So, yeah.
I need a little background on that.
Yeah, so leading up to the Montante Boo match, this is before the Riggs, the big foreplay production was even announced. This was just the Montante Boo. Well, I figured, I'm like, let me get some white overalls, or just something easy. And everywhere I looked, it just didn't look right. I looked like a farmer. I tried on some ones at like Home Depot or Sears, wherever it was, and I was like, I can't. This just doesn't look right. So then I started looking online, but nothing really was going to be here in time, or it just didn't. Everything that I saw just didn't really look right. And then out of nowhere, if you remember the date of that match, it was like, I think it was like 3 weeks before Halloween, and there was a pop-up Halloween store on the Cape that was at like an old location right across from the Cape Cod Mall. And I was driving by, and I'm like, I wonder if they have like caddy outfits there, or golfer outfits or something. And I just popped in. I saw it right there. Like, I'm not even. I walked in, looked to my right, and there's a little sports aisle of like, baseball out, and there was a caddy, and I was like, perfect. This is great. And was in and out of the store, $40. Boom. It was the best purchase I've ever made. It was a little corny. The back said like, "Who's your caddy?" And I ripped that part off. And I was gonna write like Minahan marks, but I couldn't find anyone to stitch it. So we'll save that for next year. We have the outfit saved. It's ironed up. It's hanging in the closet. We're ready to go.
I mean, from the way I saw it on the computer, it looks like you could have snuck into Augusta and gotten a bag or two.
Afterwards, we were having lunch with some of the foreplay guys, and Frankie Borelli doesn't know me from anybody, and he asked me like, "Oh, do you like on this, like, do you caddy on the side, or is it like a part-time job for you?" I was like, "No, I bought this at the Halloween store." Like, God, no, I'm not a caddy. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Well, I hope you get to use it again.
I appreciate it.
Amazing. Well, listen, I really appreciate you coming on, and this was a fun chat, and wish you all the best with your upcoming projects, and
thank you.
Hope to meet you in the future.
Yeah, no, I hope to see you. I hope there is a live show going forward with some Minifan stuff. I'm not going to call for it, but I certainly will be there if there's one. And I know you will be too. I think we met. Did we meet? We met
yes, you know what? We did.
One of the shows. I don't remember which way. Yeah, it was before I probably had a crash out. So you're probably like, oh, this guy's nuts. But yeah, no, I do remember meeting you quickly that weekend. It was nice.
Yeah, quick. All right, good. Well, I want to thank everybody at the Minifan Network, Menners, for all the support. And of course, thanking Kirk for all of this. So everybody have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon. Take care.
Take care.